So this series has basically become like Fast and the Furious at this point. And with that, Mission Impossible Fallout brings with it a shit ton of ridiculous action, silly and over-the-top spy stuff, and some serious intrigue when it comes to its characters, morals, and intentions. It's got a great mix of comedy, suspense, and again, some explosive action. Like, oh fuck, there are just explosions everywhere in this movie. And it all comes together through this memorable cast. Seriously, Fallout is easily one of the best movies of this series, if not the best. So Fallout brings us back into the Mission Impossible world, and it's definitely a world that I wanted to be back in. I hadn't always been a fan of this series though. At one point, I hadn't seen any of them. That was until Ghost Protocol came out, and it showed me the way. For I was blind, but then I could see, or something. So I went back and watched the others, and so now I'll give you a bit of a rundown on what I think of this series overall. So the first one is good, it's alright. Second one is shit, I hate it. It's so bad. Oh, it's so shit, I hate Mission Impossible 2. Number 3 is awesome, it's good. Ghost Protocol is the best, love it so much. Rogue Nation is pretty much on par with 3, it's also pretty awesome, it's good. And that's all. Like all of the Mission Impossible films, this one stars Tom Cruise. And with that, I have to say that I reckon he's a much better actor than he actually gets credit for. Like, sure, he might not have like the widest range in the biz, but look, he can pull off some emotion, and he definitely has to be appreciated for his efforts behind the stunt work. And look, I'm not sure exactly how much of that is real. I don't know how much danger he's really in. I don't know what's really going on there. I'm sure there's a bunch of like behind the scenes stuff that sort of explains a bit of that, but look, here I am doing this review, so what the hell can I say? Good on the guy, and I think that it's pretty awesome for an actor to even do anything like that. Anyway, while I'm at actors and characters and stuff, Henry Cavill is really likable and convincingly badass in like this old school kind of way. But I do have to say one thing about him that I thought was kind of hilarious is his mustache, because look, there was that whole thing with the Justice League CGI stuff and everything, and it was like, it was such a waste. It was such a waste of controversy, because I don't know, he had a mustache. Well, it was really a bit of a beard. He had a bit of stubble and stuff. It was nothing special, and I just find it so funny that there was that much sort of drama about it and stuff, and we were all talking about it and everything, and it just turned out to be a fairly normal looking beard kind of thing. And talking about the rest of the cast, look, Simon Pegg was Simon Pegg, so Simon Pegg was perfect. Love him. And look, the others were fine. They were all good. Whatever. That's enough of that though, moving on. So on to the other main sort of thing. The action. Fallout is of course directed with expertise and clear vision behind it. It pulls together some creatively put together set pieces, and it breaks up its scenes with just enough action, spy orientated stuff, and some actual character driven moments. Look, it's certainly not going to win any awards for its like dramatic prowess or its acting or whatever, but it's all put together with finesse. Like, it's well done. And I also just have to say that it has fantastic pacing, because this is a 2.5 hour movie, and that's a fucking long movie. That's like Infinity War length there. But look, I was sitting there, I was enjoying it, and it breezed right on through. I didn't feel like I was there for days or something like I would with some other 3-hour kind of movie that's boring, because this was just exciting. It had a range of different things going on. Not to sound like a dumb child who gets distracted easily or something, but it kept my attention, and I didn't feel like I was bored. I didn't feel like it was dragging, and I didn't have to pee. I didn't even have to pee. I didn't have to go to the toilet. I wasn't thinking about anything other than what was in the movie. I wasn't thinking about what I had to do after or whatever. None of that is relevant though. Just forget about that. It had great pacing. Another thing that Fallout does really well is that it weaves into its previous movies without alienating sort of the audience in this new one. Like, it had characters from the past. It had sort of a history. There was clearly stuff going on, but it wasn't like reliant on the old stuff. It was definitely a standalone story. It definitely had its own thing going on. It just had characters from the past that sort of affected that. Alright, so now we're going to talk about that bathroom fight that's all over the trailers and stuff, because holy shit, that is an insane scene, and it's surprisingly brutal. Like, look, it's not overly bloody or anything, but you really feel those punches. Jeez, it's definitely a highlight of the whole movie. Among many others though, such as like this really elaborate car chase, which branches onto other car chases, this on-foot chase nearing the third act, and a heart-stopping climactic fight. And with that being said, I have to say that Mission Impossible Fallout actually had a surprising amount of suspense. Like, for a movie that's spy stuff and you think, you know, everything's just going to go perfectly, of course they're going to be fine. Even if most of the time that was sort of the case, it still surprised me as to how on the edge they were when it came to this danger. Like, the movie would often kind of loom in on impending doom for like just a little bit too long, making it successfully so that I felt unsure about what was going to happen to our heroes next. You could really actually feel the danger, and you can't always say that when it comes to these sorts of spy or just action movies in general. Like, you watch Fast and the Furious, as I mentioned before, it feels kind of similar, but it feels more authentic. Like, Fast and the Furious, you're watching that, you're like, yeah, Dom Toretto is going to be right. Like, they're not going to kill him off. Like, what are you talking about? He's going to be fine. And sure, you don't think they're going to kill off Ethan Hunt, but any of the others, they kind of felt like maybe they could go. Mission Impossible Fallout has so many threads coming and going through its story, and look, I'm 100% sure that you could probably pick that apart logically. Like, I'm sure there are plot holes all over if you think about it too hard. Thing is, I don't think about it too hard, so I was having a great time. I thought it was fantastic, and I remained impressed as to how it all sort of came together. Like, it felt like there were so many different ways that it could go, and the characters' sort of dynamics, relationships, and goals were constantly shifting. It really proved that Mission Impossible 6 still had surprises coming constantly, and it made it so that the entire film felt erratic and exciting, and that it wasn't too restrained by like common narrative constructs and movie, you know, cinematic cliches. It's not the most original plot in the world, it's a basic spy thing, but it did feel like it had a bit more going for it in terms of not just being the exact same thing. I think that Mission Impossible Fallout is a very silly movie, and I think that it gets very over the top at times, but I don't think it's a stupid movie. Another thing that Mission Impossible Fallout does a great job of is use of its dark and serious themes. Making questions like, what was the right thing to do in this situation, and having sort of moral questions that aren't always in these sorts of movies like Mission Impossible and stuff. Like, you actually question what the characters were sort of aiming to do there. You were sort of questioning if what they did was right. And hell, it even makes Mr. Goddamn Perfect Spy Man Ethan Hunt look flawed and human. In fact, the entire story kicks off with him failing a mission. And if you weren't expecting that, if you didn't read the like synopsis before seeing the movie and stuff, like me, then the results of this were actually kind of shocking and were catastrophic, and it was really cool to see Ethan Hunt fail a mission. I think that's the first of the series, and it was an interesting way to kick this movie off. It was cool to see a Mission Impossible movie raise bigger questions than just having a, you know, simple one-off sort of action-packed mission. Mission Impossible Fallout feels a little bit more mature, but you know, still remains in that silly sort of territory where a bunch of like super convenient spy stuff happens all the time. It's still clearly a fake, fun world, but it didn't feel as dumb. Mission Impossible Fallout sets to top itself in terms of action, and it certainly does just that. Though aside from the action, some of it sometimes feels a little bit thrown together, and maybe it doesn't make the most sense in the world at times. And Ethan Hunt might be a little too perfect and a little too much of a goody two-shoes, Mr. Great Guy. Well, I'm just here to say that, look, in the end, it is Mission Impossible. And really, you have to just kind of buy into that shit. I did, and I had a great time. I think that Mission Impossible Fallout was fantastic. Look, it's not the best movie in the world. It might not even be the most memorable movie in the world, but it's really fun while you're there. I think it's great. I think you should definitely see it. It's one of the best of the series. I definitely recommend it.